but he had difficulties with something about how the handicapped were portrayed in the media and how they were treated in his actual life, where they would be grouped together in such a way that was condescending, really. And he on some levels, he just wanted to be the bad guy in this movie. He wanted to play a guy that would kill somebody, and that was, seeing a bad guy handicapped person is kind of not considered the right thing right now. And
That's a disturbing dichotomy.
He wanted to be he just wanted to do what he wanted to do, be a person. And that there's some kind of hypocrisy, really, with the fact that you can't show somebody with a handicap being something other than a really great person.
Well, we had the movie Freaks, where the circus freaks, doing the bad guy at the end,
which is a fantastic film, and was made during a different time.
Right.
It's a pre-code film, which is a very interesting time in cinema in the U.S. When I do question and answers about what is it, I'll go into a long talk about the pre-code and the code and the rating systems and what that's meant within the culture. And you can see points in time where there have been films that have been made in the pre-code time for 1934. There were a lot of very interesting films that dealt with racism, sexuality, violence,
Birth of a Nation,
all of these things in a very different fashion. You can tell before 1934 that this was a different culture.
Right.
Then the codes came in and stayed. The Hayes Commission stayed pretty much the same until the ratings came in the 1960s. But in the late 60s, there was another time period when there was an area of corporate financing and distribution, which went on into the mid-70s, where
counterculture movies got made.
There were movies that explored more interesting things, and that's not happening right now.
The golden age of directors, you could say as well. All the foundations of Scorsese and Coppola, and these guys were pushing the boundaries.
But you can mention individuals like that, but it was also the corporate elements that were working with that. Those same individuals may not be able to make that kind of film right now.
Right.
Yes. And that's why we've had to step outside of that system, and I'm having to fund this stuff and go and tour with the film personally. I don't mind it. I'm glad I found this niche, and it's basically working, but it certainly isn't easy.
No, of course not. But again, I come back to the internet, and I look at, as someone who has been in your world, who's still kind of in that world, and worked on the corporate side, we've democratized everything, as we talked about. The equipment is 1/8 the cost.
Kind of, but it's like
Lynch shot his new movie with PD-150s.
Yeah, but it's the distribution element, and David Lynch is having to do. So he's doing it in a somewhat more traditional fashion than what I'm doing, but essentially he's self-distributing that film.
He is indeed.
Yeah, and I'm sure, I haven't talked to him about it.
It's difficult.
But I'm certain it's for basically the exact same reasons. Yeah.
But again, at the end of the day, it's more liberating as an artist.
Well, it is true that the things like,
you're afforded a higher profile than most struggling filmmakers.
Exactly. I mean, and that's something I'm lucky in. There's no question, and something I'm counting on too. I would not have invested this kind of money in these projects if I hadn't known that I would be able to count on that, because these would be extremely difficult. Both of these films would be extremely difficult to promote. But I'm glad that I'm able to do it, especially with this Steve Stewart film.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I think,
Well, I shouldn't say this. I'm glad I can do any and all of them. Yeah.
And doing Beowulf, I mean, what was that experience? So here you're working on one hand super indie, and then you go to the grandiose.
Well, I mean,
balance.
I mean, I am used to it, and it's something that I've become, especially with the Steve Stewart film. I was working on What Is It for quite a long time, and I had put him into What Is It in order to make Everything Is Fine into a sequel, basically. They were completely separate. His film was completely separated from it, and it still is a film that stands on its own, absolutely. But one of Stephen C. Stewart's lungs collapsed in 2000, and it became apparent if we didn't shoot something soon, we may never get to shoot anything at all. And it was right around this time that the first Charlie's Angels film was coming to me, and I knew that with the money that I made from that film, I could put it straight into the Stephen C. Stewart film. So I shot that. I came out, met with David and with Stephen, and we figured out the sets, and David built all of the sets. I went away for a month. I acted in a small independent film. Came back. We shot Stephen C. Stewart's films at David's warehouse over a period of about 6 months, and then Steve died within a month of finishing the shooting. So we were really glad that we got it done. But it was working on that film that before that I had kind of struggled to find movies that on some level were reflecting my psychological interests in things, but it was extremely frustrating because ultimately they wouldn't. And the films that I wasn't choosing films for money. I was trying to find
things that resonated with you.
Right. And I mean, I don't regret doing that because there are people that could see and understand that I was interested in interesting things. But now I've realized I need to make as much money as I can as an actor in the corporately financed and distributed film world, and finance the movies that I'm absolutely passionate about. It doesn't mean I go into work with a bitter or negative attitude. I'm grateful that I'm able to go in and do that. It's a good job to have, and you know, an actor is an interpreter. There really, in a certain way, was a mix-up for me trying to get my own psychological interests across in somebody else's movie. And you know, when I go in, I'm hired for these things. I'll go in, and generally they do want me to bring interesting things in, and I'm glad to do that. And if I can, that's great, and it usually happens. And if for some reason I can't, and what my interest is not somehow easy to reflect within the structure of the film that I'm trying to help the director do the best job I can with, it's okay. It's fine, because I know that the money that I'm making with that project, I'm going in and putting into these films that I'm so truly, genuinely passionate about.